Welcome to Counselor's Corner. I'm Stacy Hawkins. The purpose of Counselor's Corner is to give you the tools you need to maximize your mental and emotional well-being and nurture your relationships. Today, we're joined by HCC lead counselor, Dr. Becky Howery, to talk about the process of obtaining ADA accommodations. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Howery.
Thanks for inviting me. It's wonderful to be here.
So, what is an accommodation? Can you give us some examples?
Sure. An accommodation gives students or individuals equal access. A simple example that everyone sees every day is a curb cut. Another example of an accommodation is eyeglasses. It allows you to see the board better. That's a simple one. And many people have that accommodation. People that come in to get accommodations may have extended time on testing. They might have a sign language interpreter. They might have software if they're hearing impaired, if they're visually impaired, so that the program can speak to them and they can read a test by having the test actually read to them electronically.
So why are accommodations so important?
It provides everybody equal access. And it's the law. It's important that we give everybody, we don't discriminate on race, age, sex, or disability.
Now, some students that are coming to HCC have had accommodations in their K through 12 schooling. So how is college different?
Well, in K through 12, they have ARD meetings. And everybody comes together and parents are invited. And a lot of times they come, sometimes they don't. As students go on, maybe in 6th grade, they start getting included in the ARD meetings. When they're younger, they don't. The information is given to all of the teachers, and the student really doesn't have to do too much. They know that what the students' learning differences are. They know how to accommodate it. And a package comes and somebody in the school tells them. When they make the transition from elementary to middle school, same thing. The information comes over and the student doesn't do anything. Same thing into high school. When they get to college, it's up to them to bring the documentation in and they start to advocate for themselves. Student responsibilities are to reach out and get the documentation from either the high school or a medical doctor or private testing that they had done. Send it in to the ADA counselor and complete an intake. And after an intake is completed, we create an accommodation letter for the student. And then the student's responsible for giving the accommodation letter to the faculty members.
Now, I'm an adjunct faculty member myself, and I certainly want all of my students to be able to get the most they can out of class. So what are my responsibilities when I get a notification that a student needs an ADA accommodation?
Well, the first thing, Stacy, would be to read through the letter. If you've got some questions, you could ask the student just to clarify. One of the things you can't ask is what's your disability? Again, that's widespread in K through 12, but it's private medical information. So you would never ask a student what their disability is. And if you think, well, that accommodation is not going to work in this setting, you would need to call the ADA counselor and we could work something else out that would work. You may not see how it could work, but I can tell you how it can be done because, that's not your area. Other times we've had to develop accommodations together, but we need to have the student have equal access. An example of that is we had a person that was pretty visually impaired, but as long as he looked through the microscope, he could see a lot of things. I mean, he could see everything through the microscopes because it was magnified so much. So in a class that worked primarily with microscopes, he didn't really, as long as he could use the microscope, that was his accommodation,
Can you give us any other advice, either as faculty members, as friends, to help people out?
Well, I guess the first thing is people are people. You treat everybody with the same amount of respect and concern, and work with them and to take the time to work with them, just like you would with any other student. If a student's having difficulty in a class or doesn't understand, usually the professor takes the time to explain. And That also needs to be done with a student with a disability. For example, a 20-year-old could have a stroke and maybe have to have things repeated. And so you think, well, they're not listening or they're not paying attention. But if you read the accommodation letter, you might see clarification of concepts, or you may need to repeat or redirect. And that's not babying the student. That's not working with someone who doesn't want to listen. That is accommodating his or her disability.
Well, I can tell you as a faculty member, there's nothing like seeing any student succeed. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Howery.
It was great to be here, and I'm glad this information can go out to students and faculty. Thank you, Stacy.
If you'd like more information about this and other mental health care topics, as well as learning about all the services provided by the counseling department, visit hccs.edu/counseling. For Counselor's Corner, I'm Stacy Hawkins.